We are witnessing some unbelievable individual starts to this NBA season. And the MVP race has been such a hot button topic in recent years. Last year probably being the epitome of that in a way that wasn't so great. The dialogue got pretty nasty and I don't think ended up with the right conclusion because of that. But who is your MVP right now?
I wasn't, expecting to feel this way at this point in the season, but I don't think I can give it to anybody else but Joel Embiid.
Yeah.
The Sixers are, again, by point differential, one of the greatest teams of all time. That's what they're on track to do. And Embiid is the only player, again, if he was to hold the stat line for the rest of the season, he would be the only player in NBA history to average 34, 11, and 6 in a single season. He's also one of three players. Carson, some quick hitting trivia. Can you name or he's one of four players to average 34 points per game on 60% true shooting or better. Can you name the other three?
Ooh, I can't believe that there are 64% true shooting?
Or 60%, excuse me.
Oh, okay. So MJ would have gotten there.
MJ did it in 88.
That's really interesting. James Harden certainly did that.
Harden did it twice, 2019 and 2020.
And then I'm just thinking about the other dudes who have gotten to that number. Wilt didn't do it. Kobe, I really don't think did it. Rick Barry didn't do it. It was just a different level of efficiency in that era. Elgin Baylor didn't do it, just too hard. I mean, it couldn't be Bob McAdoo, could it?
It's a GOAT. It's a GOAT, man.
Who am I spacing on here?
It's Kareem.
His average. Oh, Kareem. Wow. Oh, good for him. Yeah, sure.
1972, 34.8 on 60.3% true shooting. Embiid is currently averaging the most efficient 34 point per game season ever. I mean, even more efficient than James Harden's campaign by 0.19%. I mean, he's been absurd this season, Carson, and I just think we got to reward it, the totality, what he's doing defensively, what he's doing playmaking-wise, the shot making. And it really does look like he's cleaned up some of the issues that, have persisted in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And we'll have to see if that continues. Again, the playoffs just a different stage. It's a different beast. And I don't mean that we haven't seen him, he's been better at dissecting double teams. He's been better at getting up and down the floor. He's been better at hitting difficult shots. He's been better in the clutch. I mean, everywhere you look, Embiid has been better, but that's a different stage. It's a different level of pressure. Mm-hmm. And I just wonder. It is a historic campaign, though, and I think we have to reward it again with the team success, the two-way impact, and the historical precedent that you see from Embiid. This isn't to say that there aren't other guys that I considered. I think this is a very competitive MVP race.
Yeah.
I think you could go Jokic. I think you could go Giannis. I think you could go Luka. Maybe you're feeling froggy. You want to give it to Anthony Edwards. But I'm going to go with Joel Embiid, man. I think that he's having the most dominant season of anybody. Yeah. And if Jamal was healthy and the Nuggets' record was a little bit better, maybe I'd show some love to Jokic. But I'm rocking with Embiid right now.
Yeah, I think that it has to be Embiid. And I don't think that there were many people who were more skeptical of Joel Embiid going into last year's playoff run. Just because some people were ready to crown him as the best player alive, and he did end up winning the MVP when I would have had him third on my ballot. And I talked about all of the questions that I had about his game scaling to a playoff scenario, all of which ultimately proved to be very problematic, and he struggled mightily in the playoffs yet again. But that's a different conversation. I do think this is the best Joel Embiid we've ever seen. I do think that he's improved upon the playmaking, which has been a huge issue for him in those playoff settings, teams sending doubles at him and he can't punish them consistently enough. I think that we have seen him not only better in that capacity, I think we have seen him more involved as a playmaker overall, running handoffs, at times even handling in transition. Like, he's just become more comfortable as a passer and an all-around offensive engine. And he is a lethal scorer of the basketball. Is he a bit overly reliant on getting to the line in playoff settings? Yeah, I think that we've seen that, and the foul grifting doesn't work in the same way. But right now, he's just a really good shot maker. The problem is that he hasn't ever been that level of a shot maker in the playoffs, right? His jump shot has fallen apart on him a bit, and that combined with the decreased foul rate has led to this crazy drop-off in scoring production and efficiency. But, I mean, when he's shooting 48% from mid-range, when he is abusing people out of the post like he is right now, It's ridiculous. I mean, 34 points per game on this efficiency, you can't overstate how insane that is and the impact on team success. The number one team in net rating, the number one offense, a top 5 defense, and even more impressive, they're 18-5 when he plays. They're 0-3 when he doesn't. And yeah, they've had a really easy schedule as of late. I mean, it's been basically just alternating Pistons and Wizards games, and he's gone absolutely berserk on all of those poor fellows. But regardless, I mean, they're just playing dominant basketball. And although I thought this would be a very good team, if you asked me, hey, who's going to have the best record when their guy is on the floor? Is it going to be the Sixers? Is it going to be the Bucks? Is it going to be the Nuggets? Is it going to be the Celtics? I wouldn't have guessed that it would be the Sixers with Joel Embiid. And of course, Maxey taking a leap is part of that. But I also think the massive amounts of defensive attention that Embiid demands really amplifies Maxey as well. And then defensively, he's been awesome. He's holding opposing players 13% below their average field goal percentage at the rim. So at this point, I think, yeah, I mean, Giannis and Jokic are outstanding candidates, and it is so impressive that we are looking at 3 years running now, where it's the same 3 dudes who are really the only serious contenders in this conversation. That's so impressive in terms of their regular season dominance. Giannis, I mean, he's shooting 61% from the field right now, man, while he's dropping 30 a game with what he does on the glass as a playmaker defensively. And his team is really, really good. But I still think that the fact that Embiid's team has been better when he's out there at a bit of a talent deficit versus the Bucks, that to me is more impressive. And Jokic would have been the front runner here a couple weeks ago, but between a couple ejections, which by the way, I'm not a fan of, I'm very anti-ejection. I think that I've been clear on that. But to me, unless there is pervasive, like verbal vulgarity, borderline abuse, don't throw somebody out of the game for words. Don't throw somebody out of the game for complaining a little bit too much or just complaining one time a bit too aggressively. It's heated competition. It's not your place to impact the game like that. Generally, I think like unless things escalate to that crazy verbal stage or a physical altercation, hold your whistle. Don't give out texts, especially don't give out ejections. But that has happened, so Jokic hasn't been able to finish a couple of those games. And then he had like the 2 awful shooting nights. It's just enough to give JoJo the edge here. Like all 3 of these dudes are playing at an unbelievable level, all of them in their own ways putting up historically unprecedented numbers. But I think through a quarter, a little bit more, closer to a third of the regular season, Embiid is the deserving MVP.
And I wouldn't be surprised if it swung the other way the rest of the year.
Of course not.
But it's going to ebb and flow. Do you give Luka any shout?
I give Luka a shout as the 4th guy, I would say. I mean, I think that what he's doing offensively is unbelievable, and I think that what he's done for the Mavs as a team has been very impressive. Now, the on-off numbers for him, the on-court numbers, not so good. I think that that's a bit of a differentiator in this conversation. And then, I mean, Giannis and Embiid are reaching a totally different level of two-way impact. Jokic is, to me, just the better offensive player and offensive engine and still a better defender. So I love Luka, man. I think that he's a guy who somehow got a bit undersold throughout this offseason. He is one of the most dangerous, most dominant offensive players ever, and that translates to the playoffs always. But in terms of regular season MVP, I think that a couple of the same factors that have kept him out of like the very upper echelon of the conversations here are applying again this year. But we agree, it's Embiid. I think that it's somewhat clear at this point, but absolutely things can change. I mean, Jokic had that thing signed, sealed, delivered until a month to go when Kendrick Perkins was like, did you guys ever consider that he's white and maybe that's why he's getting MVP? And then things changed pretty quickly. And did you guys know that he plays no defense, that he's a fraud on defense? And this year it could be, wait, I know it's a regular season award, but Embiid sucks in the playoffs always. He can't win it back-to-back years because now he's in some special company if he does that. And that is the one last thing I'll say on this. I have seen people pivoting to their Embiid is the best player in the world take, and I think it's a lot of people who were detractors of Jokic because they would have argued that he didn't have quote-unquote postseason success, and by that they mean that he wasn't winning multiple playoff series when the second and third best players on his team were out with injury. Look at how the guy fares individually. Jokic's game has always held up because of the physical imposition, the crazy shot making, the genius playmaking. Embiid has had tangible weaknesses that have been exposed. So if you weren't sold by Jokic's quote-unquote crazy regular season numbers when he was also doing it individually in the playoffs, To me, you can't be sold by Embiid playing at this level in the regular season when he has had major red flags in the playoffs. Just talking about that best player in the world conversation, because that's special. I can't elevate you to that conversation just based on regular season performance, especially when we've seen him struggle so much in the postseason.